Hey, everybody. Welcome to my guest tonight. I'm Jeff Ravilla. I'm your host. I've got an amazing guest joining me tonight, Phil Barth. We're going to talk stress, productivity, game shows, and chickens.
He's got a book and a bird and a heart full of grit. Teaches how to laugh when life throws a fit. From the millionaire stage to the speaking mic, Phil Barth's got the tools to help you in the fight. Silence your chickens and rise to new heights. Stress won't win when Phil's inside. It's my quest tonight with Jeff Ravilla, where laughter meets wisdom and the truth is a thriller. Silence your chickens and rise to new heights. Stress won't win when Phil's inside. It's my quest tonight with Jeff Ravilla, where laughter meets wisdom and the truth is a thriller.
Phil, welcome to the show. I can tell by your reaction backstage. I think you like the song.
I love the song. That was awesome.
I used to give people a choice if they wanted to hear it before, but everybody really seems to enjoy the song. I think hearing it in the moment as we're live is the way to go. So
way better.
And I see you're living in Cincinnati now. Were you always born in Cincinnati?
No, I was born in Northern Ohio, relocated to Cincinnati. Oh gosh, it's been about 40 years ago.
And where did you go to school at? What kind of led you down this path of where we're at today?
All right, so where we're at today, I went to school for my undergrad at Bowling Green up in Northern Ohio, studied computer science, got a job in Southwestern Ohio out of school in computer science, which is, where they find all the good speakers from is computer nerds. Truthfully, there are a lot of computer nerds turned speakers, but that's another story. And met my wife at work and have been happily in the greater Cincinnati area for just about 40 years.
Oh, very nice. And so while you're this computer science major, and how did that turn into public speaking? What was the little thing that was that little pivot that got you out of computer science?
That's a good story. I went into computer science because my uncle was in computer science and he drove a Corvette. And I thought, well, therefore, if you program computers, you get a vet at some point. Never did. But the evidence in my undergrad especially showed that I was good at a lot of things, computer programming not being one of them. But I went ahead. And so after a few programs, they said, we need to find him a role that doesn't involve as much programming. And so I was talking with the business and talking with computers because I was good at talking. And then that led to presentations. And eventually I wound up in Toastmasters. And then in Toastmasters, they have the world championship of public speaking. So I got in the world championship for a number of years. And then finally in 2011, I told a story about frying those inner chickens inside of you. And I went, the world championship of public speaking goes all the way until they have a world champion. So 20,000 start out, the one person wins. I wound up in the final 9 with my chicken story. And so I said, this is probably something I need to do. And it was a side hustle for a while, and now I do it full time.
And how did you stumble across the Toastmasters? Because that's an interesting pivot point from computer programming to, hey, I want to get up in front of people and tell stories.
Yeah, so I put in to speak at a conference in San Diego before I knew of Toastmasters, and the main speaker was Tom Peters. And he said, you need to try Toastmasters. It's a great networking. I mean, to the audience, not to me specifically. It's a great networking thing, and they'll work on your communication skills, and that's a critical skill. I had a side little symposium session, and I was awful. Just absolutely awful. They gave us all the reviews back later, and I think there were 72 people, and I just barely made the top 70. It was just brutal. And so I said, you know what? I need to find out about this Toastmasters, because if I like talking to people, but I suck at it. So I found Toastmasters and learned how to speak publicly. You wouldn't know it from that last sentence I just delivered, but I learned how to do that public speaking, enjoyed it a lot. I've always enjoyed humor. And so they helped me develop the skills.
And how many years did you enter the national competition, or is it a global competition?
It is. I started entering probably in 2002.
Yeah.
And so 2011, I made the finals. 2015 and 2018, I made the semifinals.
Wow. So, but you mentioned that the chicken story was starting to develop all the way back in 2011. What was the origin of, why did you start leaning towards the chickens in your public speaking?
So the thing that happened was they said, "Hey, are you going to be in the 2011 contest in our club?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll find something." And so with about a week to go, I said, "Well, I did a project management presentation for people, and there was a story: if you don't ask, the answer is always no." And so I kind of crafted that into the story of asking my wife out for the first date and how scared I was and how the chickens were like, "You'll never make it," and she's out of your league and so on. And it kind of when I put those fears and made them into a chicken, then people were like, I can relate to that. I can relate to the nervousness and so on. And you just make it like a little chicken. Rubber chickens came later, and it scored with people. And I made it all the way to the finals. And I said, there's something to this. And it was another 10 years before it really kind of took off. But then rubber chickens became the thing. And I buy them in bulk from Amazon. And I tell people that these chickens, these little ones, are nothing to be afraid of. They're just these little squeaky things. The thing you got to fear, and I put this in that original speech, was I call it the regret, the red rooster of regret. And he's awful.
It sounds painful.
Yeah. And there's scientific research on that, right? That it's the things you don't do and the regrets and those once in a lifetime opportunities that you passed on that just will continue to nag at you and cause way more damage than the little one that tells you not to take a chance.
Do you remember when you got off the stage in 2011 and you like, oh my God, there's something here that's bigger than what I just presented? What was your initial feedback, from that year?
So absolutely. I won my first two contests and I really didn't have the chicken thing perfected. And then in the Cincinnati division, I got up there and 30 seconds in, everybody was just dying laughing. And I was like, I've got him. There is something here. And I won that contest against some really good speakers. And I said, there's something to this. And then I went on and won in the semifinals in front of several hundred people in Las Vegas. And then you had to have a different speech for the finals. And I freaked out, but I made it. So it was cool. And just hearing the audience reaction and thinking, what, these people are with me. They enjoy the humor. When I'm making a point, they're kind of quieting down and taking it in. This is probably my gift and what I am meant to share with the world.
And that first one was about asking your wife out on a date.
Yes.
How has that story evolved, or how do you adapt that story for different events or circumstances or for different stages?
So that is a nice core story. I started out with the whole story of the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire audition. And the chickens again saying, what makes you special? Everybody in the world wants to be on this show. You're not going to make it, right? And so you talk about that, and then I might put another story or something in there. And then it's like, okay, so we've been talking about being on a game show, my son's being in a heavy metal band and getting 100,000 listens. But let's be clear. Whatever your big idea that those chickens are holding you back, it just has to be big to you. For example, maybe you want to ask someone out on a date. And so we transition to a very small thing in the big, in the overall picture, but something that was very, very big to me. It was like thinking, she could be the one. I need to get up the courage. And so we transition to that. And then I talk about other things you can do. For example, I tell the story of when I was 50 riding a roller coaster with my son and all the chickens the whole time going, "You're an idiot," and almost getting sick and so on. It's a lot of fun.
That you said something in there that I just started to notice about really good public speakers. And it's almost that when they tell a story, their details are not just personal, but all the details are in there that are only specific to them. But because they're able to tell such a specific story about themselves, that's what helps the audience relate to the speaker. Some speakers try to be general to apply to everybody, but you gave me three specific: the heavy metal band, asking your wife out, and the other example where only stories that you have experienced Do you find that helps you connect with audiences better than a speaker who's just trying to be vague and connect with everybody?
100%. Yeah, it's my story. Number one, that means I can talk for an hour because I'm telling my stories. Oh, I could never memorize a 1 hour speech. Well, who could? But if you and I are having lunch and we're telling stories back and forth, it's not like, oh wait, I got to look at my notes and see about what happened when I asked my wife out, right? No. So it helps me to remember. And then those specific details. So talking about the name of the roller coaster. We went on the Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. And so people know, okay, this is real. And you give enough details, like I'm going up and I'm 200 feet off the ground and I look down and people are like, I can see that in my mind. And so, yeah, that specific is always memorable. And even if somebody hasn't been on a game show or something, they can think about, I remember the time when I was scared out of my mind, riding a roller coaster, flying an airplane, etc.
And when you get that specific and people connect with you in the audience, when you get off stage, do you just get inundated with stories about, I did that too, and this was me?
I do, and that's one of my favorite parts of the job. Oh man, I remember the time and then the other favorite part is I finished the keynote last year in Vancouver, and a lady came up to me afterwards. She goes, I got to tell you, I heard you the year before in Albuquerque, and you told me I needed to go after my big, bold, brilliant idea. And it was to win a sand volleyball tournament. And I went for it and I did it. Thank you. And it's like, oh my God, that is so cool. This was her huge idea. I can't play sand volleyball, but it was her huge idea and she nailed it. And it's like, I love that. I love hearing that. And I love talking with people afterwards.
Where has this taken you over the years? Where has this just basic concept that you've applied to different stages, where have you gone and spoken about these concepts?
I have, this year so far, I have been in Netherlands, Belgium, Toronto twice, Prague, and Washington, D.C., and a couple others, and local events in Cincinnati. I am going to be it's November, Johannesburg. So that'll be the first time I've spoken in Africa. And what that means is not only, I got to do that, but for example, with Belgium and the Netherlands, my wife and youngest son came with me. So we got to enjoy two countries we had never seen before. And it just, I spoke on 2 days, but we were over there for 8 days, which meant for 6 days, we got to travel and see a part of the world that I wouldn't have gotten to do otherwise.
That's amazing. You mentioned 2011 was the big year, the big breakout year, and you mentioned 2015 and 16, but hasn't always been smooth sailing. A little bit of a health issue in between all of this, right?
Yes, sir. The 2015, I was going all around the city of Cincinnati, getting ready to go to the semifinals, which were that year in Las Vegas again. And with 1 week to go, I had a heart attack because I was burning it on both ends, not managing stress. My diet wasn't great, but the worst part was stress. And so I had a heart attack with 1 week to go. So I qualified for the semifinals, but I did not compete in the semifinals. So you had to tap somebody on the shoulder and go, hey, what are you doing next week? Well, now you're going to Vegas and competing. He hasn't forgiven me for that, but he will someday. No, seriously. From there, I got another story, right? And a talk about how do we manage stress in our lives, because it's all around us. And the idea is there's a lot of optional stress, and there was a lot of optional stress that I was taking on that I didn't need to. And so I stopped. I talk about how to manage stress.
And so in my mind, I see a little bit of opposite ends, right? On one side, you're saying, don't let your chickens silence you, right? Go forward, charge, get it done. Don't let fear stop you. On the other side, you're saying, hey, well, wait a second. Let's also do this sensibly. Let's be healthy. Let's make good life choices. So have you merged those two concepts into a single speech now?
Yeah, I thought about that, and I think it's two sides of the same coin. So one of the things I talk about is all of the optional stress that you take on. You know, and I'm going to do a quick detour. There was a study done from Harvard, and Sean Aker and his wife Michelle Galeen did it. They divided the people in half, the groups in half. They didn't divide people in half, but they divided the groups in half. And one group was given 3 minutes of bad news to start the day. One group was given 3 minutes of solution focused news. At the end of the day, the bad news group was 27% more likely to report having a bad day. And what did they do? 3 minutes, they had what I consider to be optional stress. If you get up first thing in the morning and you turn on the news and it's telling you how terrible the world is, then you have set yourself up for 8 hours of stress. 27% more likely to have a bad day. Over the course of the month, what is that? 9-10 days that are going to be bad instead of good. And that's all going to be holding you back. Those are the chickens, those stress chickens that are going to be holding you back because you're worried about everything that sucks, as opposed to you're looking forward, you're looking positively at the world, and you're pursuing that goal. So it's kind of another way to make sure you are focused on the good things that you were meant to do in the world.
And maybe putting all this together, there is a book that's out. All right, the Fry Your Chicken: 7 Ways to Get Those Chickens Inside You to Shut the Cluck Up.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Oh, he ran off stage. There he's back.
Sorry, I had to go get it off the bookshelf. There it is.
And so I think there's like 7 lessons in this book. Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah. So this is distilled from the stories I use in my keynotes. So, for example, and each one of them has their own little chicken that's in there. So one of them was Face the Facts Fiona. I call her the one that was like in my ear when I was asking my wife out wanted to ask my wife out for a date. I'm like, I'm going to ask her out. And then this chicken in my ear go, face the facts. She's out of your league. And she was, right? And you're going to make a fool of yourself. Well, that's an opinion. So when I got up the courage, that fried Face the Facts Fiona. The one comfort zone Carl, I call him, that just wants you to keep couch potato Carl. You got to get out of the comfort zone. Couch potato Carl wants you to stay sitting down. Don't get on that roller coaster with your son. Well, I did it. And he was screaming not my son, the chicken was screaming the whole time. But we made a great memory. So each one of them is kind of I put a metaphorical chicken name on each of those fears that was holding me back. And it's various stories in my life and how I fried them. Then there's exercises in the back like, hey, what's your big idea? What's your big, bold, brilliant idea? What chicken is holding you back? And here's some things you can do to fry that chicken.
Do you have anything else in the works? Is there going to be a second version, or do you see yourself building upon this book?
I have several ideas for books. I did one before that called Great Things Happen Every Day, and that's just based on my positivity practice, where I just listed and I still do it on social media. Here are the great things that happened today, and talked about all the changes that it made in my life. I am thinking that there are other fry your chickens we could do, fry your chickens for teens. Maybe my son wants to help me with that. Fry your AI chickens. If you're scared of using AI, how can you I use AI a lot to make my life better. I'm not going to worry about, is this the Terminator coming to life? I'm not going to try to understand how it works. I just know that it's one of those, it's a tool I can use to make my life better and help me along that path of helping others. So that's one I've got. I've got a whole list of things I want to do, but I'm also having fun traveling the world, delivering the keynotes I already have.
Yeah. I mean, nothing you can do with AI. You can't shut it down. And that's definitely a fear that people take on when they have no control. So right. I can't do anything to stop AI. This whole show runs on AI. I have 10 pages of research on you. I write you a theme song. I don't do all that. I partner with AIs and I help and I try to get a good show put together. And
it's working.
I am a little bit, in the background, I'm like, how much do I want this thing to grow? How much power do I want AI to have?
No, and that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. I think as humans, what we need to do is make sure we put guardrails up and make sure with any tool, there are bad actors that can use it for bad purposes. So on the other side, we need to make sure that that can't be done that way. And that's no different from anything else. It's just one more tool. And I'm not going to go any more on the soapbox on that. I personally, I love it. I wondered if you didn't have an AI like a Suno or something behind you for my song, which I really appreciate. I love that.
I have some talent, but I'm not that talented. Yeah, one thing you mentioned, purchasing the chickens for your presentation. When people participate in your talks, are you throwing chickens out into the audience ever?
100%. Yeah. I've got to go to Amazon and see how many chickens I have bought and thrown to the audience. I'm certain the number is over 1,000. So what I do is I have a bag full of chickens, and before I go on, I will talk to a couple tables in the back of the room and say, look, when I come out here, I'm going to be tossing chickens. I need you to go like this and not like that. Yeah. I please don't act like you're under heavy fire. Do you promise you'll catch them and get excited? And they're like, absolutely. Who doesn't want a rubber chicken? All right. And so you toss a couple there, and then everybody in the audience is raising their hands. Get me one, get me one. And so the music is playing. We're throwing rubber chickens. This one isn't made up, this one, but they all have a QR code that takes you to my website. So I'm actually using my business card there and giving them my business card. So,
that's I just picture all these chickens flying through the air, and just a great time, a great party atmosphere.
It is. It gets people going. They're up, and that's what I was always trying to do with the contest speech or whatever. I'm like, I got to get them laughing early. I got to know they're on my side early. I don't want to try and push this rock uphill in the middle of the keynote or the speech. So we play music, we throw chickens, everybody's up and jumping and dancing around, and we're off.
Now, as a guy who hosts a trivia game show podcast, I'm 100% interested in the story of your Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and a little bit of a prize winner too, I hear.
This is true. Yes. Yeah. $32,000 was what I won. I turned it on in 1998, the very first episode, and I apologize. It was 99, August of 99, and I watched it, and I was in a hotel room. I said, this is the kind of thing I could do. Jeopardy, you gotta know all the answers, and there's no multiple choice. It's got multiple choice here, and I didn't think much more of it until the end of the show, and they put up an 800 number. If you want to be a contestant, call this number. I'm like, well, why wouldn't I do that? So every night I would call, and at the time it was the fastest finger competition. You put things in order. That's what you were doing on the phone. Put these things in order. Countries north to south, movies most recent to oldest. And if you got the three right, then you could make it to the second round and then on to the show. I never made it that way. But the longer I was watching every show, and the longer I went, the more obsessed I was with getting on the show. And eventually I auditioned in Chicago and failed, auditioned in Indianapolis and failed. And then I auditioned in Cleveland and passed the audition. And I talk about in my keynote the tricks I learned from the internet on how to pass an audition. And my wife and I got to go to New York, and I got to be on the show, meet Meredith Vieira, and $32,000.
What is that hot seat like when the music comes down and the lights go down and the bass drops?
So they took us in like a day or two before, because they want everybody to practice jumping up in the hot seat and getting back out. We met the executive producer, and he talked to us. And when I got into the studio, they keep the studio kind of cold because the lights are going to come up and it's going to get hot. I started like shaking, going, oh my God, I am really going to do this. This really happened. I always thought I would be, but this is going to happen. So that night in the hotel, I was like, okay, what's going to happen is when those lights come down, when they have the question, I'm going to close my eyes for 1 second, and then I'm going to open my eyes, and there's going to be a question on screen, and that is all that exists in the world. Me and the question, not Meredith, not people around me, not the million people who are going to be watching this on TV, just me and the question. This is what I've been studying for months, is these questions, and it worked. I don't know. I mean, we could have checked my pulse and blood pressure. I probably was still extremely nervous. But for me, that quick look, and it's just me and the question, really seemed to get my head in the right space. Now, I do remember when the $64,000 question came up, it got darker. I mean, they turned the lights all the way down, and you couldn't see past like my finger, which is not that far away. There have always been concerns with cheating after the quiz show scandal back in the 50s or whatever. So they made sure like nobody was, not that I would have, but you couldn't hear anybody, couldn't see anybody. And the $64,000 question was a whole another level.
And you said you tried to balance yourself, center yourself, so that when that question came on, you had blocked everything else out. You kind of you silenced the world around you in some way. That could have been the seeds that you planted that became the silence your chickens later on. It was that experience.
Hey, you're trying to get $1 million. Shut up. Go away.
Oh, Phil, this has been amazing. People want to connect with you. They want to bring you in for a keynote presentation. What's the best way to reach you and get in contact?
philbarth.com. And then it's got the list of my keynotes. And then right down there is contact Phil on the same page. Just send me a message. And I swear to you, if I get a message from you saying I would like to come in and do a keynote, I will respond to that email very quickly.
Awesome. Phil, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let's go back to that theme song.